Millionaire goes undercover as a janitor. Walking into the building no one knew he owned. And the first person to notice him is a struggling receptionist who barely makes eye contact. He expects judgment, maybe annoyance, but instead, he hears a single quiet sentence that stops him cold. The words hit harder than any insult because they carry something he didn't expect from someone fighting her own battles. He freezes, mop in hand, unable to respond, unsure if she somehow knows who he really is, or if her words expose something even deeper. And that's where everything begins to shift. Before we start, tell us, from which city are you watching from? And don't forget to drop your thoughts at the end. Enjoy the story. He arrived just after sunrise, wearing a faded gray uniform that didn't fit his shoulders and boots that looked too worn for a man who once stepped out of town cars. The lobby of the Ridgeway Corporate Center gleamed like a polished promise. Glass walls, marble floors, and the faint scent of expensive perfume drifting from employees rushing in. No one glanced twice at him as he pushed the cleaning cart inside. That was the first contrast. The building radiated wealth, while he tried to blend into the background of workers. They didn't bother hiding their smirks. One tugged her expensive coat closer, the fabric brushing past him like a soft dismissal. A passing intern muttered that janitors came and went every week. Another commented that people like him never stayed long. He absorbed it all, feeling the sting more than he expected. He had built companies, negotiated million-dollar contracts, and stood on stages giving speeches. Yet here, dressed as a janitor, he was just another forgettable figure pushing a cart. He moved with steady patience, wiping down the glass doors and emptying bins. Every action felt like peeling away his old identity, one layer at a time. He wanted this disguise, but he didn't realize how heavy it would feel when the world looked through him instead of at him. And he hadn't even met the receptionist yet. He was struggling with an overfilled trash bag near the front desk when the knot slipped, sending papers and empty cups across the floor. A few employees passing by shook their heads, stepping wide around the mess, as if it were somehow his fault for letting gravity win. He knelt quickly, trying to gather everything before someone complained. That's when the receptionist looked up from her desk. She didn't sigh, she didn't judge, she didn't act like he was in the way. Instead, she stood, walked around the counter, and knelt beside him without a word. Her shoes were worn at the edges, her blouse slightly faded, and there was exhaustion in her eyes, but her voice was steady and kind. "Let me help," she said, picking up stray papers and handing them to him neatly stacked. He tried to decline, but she shook her head. Nobody should have to do this alone. It was such a simple sentence, spoken without pity or performance, yet it caught him off guard. Here she was, someone with her own bills, her own worries, likely earning far less than many people who walked these halls, and she chose kindness anyway. For the first time that morning, he felt seen. Later that morning, he passed by her desk, carrying a bucket that sloshed with every step. She glanced at it, raised an eyebrow, and said, "Careful, that thing looks one wobble away from starting a slip-and-fall lawsuit we cannot afford." He stopped mid-stride, unsure if she was serious. Then she cracked a small smile, the kind people offer when they're trying to brighten someone's day. He chuckled under his breath, surprised at how natural it felt. "I'll try not to take the whole building down," he replied. "Good," she said, "because I really don't want to explain to management why a janitor turned the lobby into a swimming pool." He set the bucket down and leaned his elbow on the handle of the mop. "Well, if it happens, at least you'll have a good story to tell." "Oh, trust me," she said, tapping her pen against her notepad. "I've already got enough stories, but you might actually make the list." Her warmth wasn't forced. It wasn't the fake friendliness he was used to from people who wanted something from him. It was simple, genuine, and a little playful. And somehow, in those few exchanged jokes, the distance between them began to shrink. What no one in the building knew, not the interns, not the managers, not even the kind receptionist who helped him, was that the man pushing the cleaning cart was the original owner of Ridgeway Corporate Center. Years ago, he had built a small tech company in a rented apartment, turning it into a booming success that allowed him to buy this very property. But success came with a cost. Investors wanted control. Board members wanted profit over people, and after a long dispute, he had stepped away, selling his majority share. He told the world he needed a break. In truth, he needed clarity. He chose to return undercover for a reason far more personal than curiosity. Before walking away from everything, he had learned that the board planned harsh budget cuts, affecting the lowest paid workers, the ones who kept the building running quietly, invisibly. He wanted to see the place through their eyes. He wanted to understand the reality behind the reports, the numbers, and the polished executive summaries. So he entered as a janitor, stripped of title and status. No one recognized him. Most new employees weren't even working there during his ownership. And the few who might have known his face rarely paid attention to workers in uniform. Yet as he moved through hallways he once designed on blueprints, he felt the shift in priorities. Corners cut, morale low, people treated as replaceable parts. Then there was the receptionist. Her act of kindness wasn't something he expected. She had no idea who he was, no reason to treat him with respect, and certainly no reason to help him clean spilled trash. But she did, without hesitation. As he watched her return to her desk, he felt a tug of responsibility, one that reminded him exactly why he had come back. The next few days unfolded in small, unexpected lessons. She noticed how unsure he looked when handling new tasks, so she began offering tips, not in a condescending way, but as if they were teammates learning side by side. She showed him how to balance the mop bucket so it wouldn't slosh everywhere, laughing when he nearly tipped it again. He tried to fix a jammed copier once, and she joined him, the two of them squinting at blinking buttons until they somehow managed to coax it back to life. During her lunch break, she taught him how to navigate the building's chaotic delivery system. He tried to return the favor by showing her a trick for getting stubborn scuff marks off the lobby floor. She joked that he should patent the method. He joked that he might consider it if the world ever ran out of bigger ideas. Their conversations stayed light, but something deeper formed in the quiet moments, like when she left an extra granola bar on his cart without saying a word, or when he fixed the wobbly leg on her desk chair before she returned from lunch. Small gestures, small laughs, but each one pulled them a little closer. One evening, long after most of the building had emptied, he was finishing the last hallway when he noticed her still at the front desk. The overhead lights had dimmed to their nighttime setting, leaving the lobby washed in a soft, tired glow. She rubbed her temples, staring at a stack of overdue paperwork. He hesitated, unsure if he should interrupt, but something about her slump pulled him closer. "Sir Sting, you're still here?" he asked gently. She looked up, surprised. "Yeah, trying to catch up. They cut my hours last month, but somehow doubled my workload." She tried to laugh it off, but her voice wavered. He sat on the edge of the nearby chair, keeping a respectful distance. You shouldn't have to carry all that alone. She shrugged lightly. Life's heavy for everyone. You just learn to push through. He watched her fingers tighten around her pen, as if she were holding together more than paperwork. For a moment, he fought the urge to tell her everything: who he was, what he used to own, how he wanted to fix the things weighing her down. But the words lodged in his throat. Revealing the truth now would change everything too soon. Instead, he said softly, "You deserve better than the weight they put on you." She looked at him in a way that made his heart stutter, like she was seeing something past the uniform, past the mop, past the disguise he wore. "So do you," she whispered. Silence stretched between them, warm and fragile. Her hand rested near his on the desk, just inches away. Neither reached out, but the space between their fingers felt charged, as if the distance itself was a question waiting to be answered. If he leaned in even a little, everything would shift. But he didn't. Not yet. The tension arrived the next morning in the form of a sharply dressed man stepping out of the elevator. Someone the janitor recognized instantly, even though he prayed he wouldn't. It was a former colleague from his old life, a man who had attended board meetings with him, shaken his hand at celebrations, and smiled while quietly pushing him out of his own company. Now he appeared in the lobby, greeting employees with the polished confidence of someone who believed he owned every room he entered. The receptionist stiffened when she saw how rudely the newcomer treated her, snapping orders as if she were part of the furniture. She gave polite, clipped replies, hoping not to spark trouble, but trouble came anyway. When the newcomer spotted the janitor mopping near the elevator, he paused, eyes narrowing with recognition he quickly tried to hide. Then came a slow, cruel smirk. "Didn't expect to see you here," he murmured, just loud enough for the receptionist to hear. Quite a fall from the top. The janitor kept his gaze lowered, swallowing the insult. The receptionist frowned, glancing between them as if trying to understand the strange tension. "Don't talk to him like that," she said quietly. "He's just doing his job." The newcomer let out a mocking laugh. "Exactly." A few employees nearby snickered, assuming the janitor had embarrassed himself somehow. Heat crawled up his neck. He wished he could disappear, wished he could shield her from the humiliation that now spilled into her workspace as well. The receptionist stepped around the desk, protective anger rising in her eyes. "You don't get to speak to people that way," she said. The newcomer raised a brow, amused by her audacity. "Careful," he warned. "You don't know who you're defending." Her jaw tightened. "Maybe I know more than you think." But she didn't. Not yet. That night, long after she clocked out, and the halls settled into silence, he made a decision he knew would complicate everything. The way she stood up for him earlier replayed in his mind. Not out of pride, but out of genuine concern. She had defended him without hesitation, not knowing the weight of the man she was challenging. So he slipped into one of the empty conference rooms, logged into a system few people knew still recognized him, and accessed internal files. He searched for the line item he'd overheard her mention. Reduced hours, increased workload. And there it was, an unfair adjustment pushed through by someone who assumed no one would question it. He didn't alter anything directly tied to himself. Instead, he quietly restored her hours, corrected her pay discrepancy, and flagged her mistreatment for review under an anonymous employee protection clause he had written years ago. It wouldn't fix everything, but it would lift a piece of the weight she carried. Before leaving, he took one last look at her name on the screen. He wanted to tell her what he'd done, why he cared, but he couldn't. Not if he hoped to keep his truth hidden a little longer. The truth didn't crack open slowly. It blew apart in one sharp moment. It happened the next week, during a tense staff gathering in the lobby. The sharply dressed former colleague returned. this time carrying a tablet and wearing a triumphant expression. The receptionist was sorting mail behind her counter when the man tapped the microphone and called for everyone's attention. The janitor froze mid-step, instinct screaming that something was wrong. "We've completed an internal audit," the colleague announced. Something unusual came up. His eyes slid toward the janitor with chilling satisfaction. Someone accessed restricted executive systems using credentials that should have expired years ago. Murmurs rippled across the lobby. The janitor felt his stomach drop. The colleague gestured toward him. Imagine my surprise when the digital trail led straight to our newest custodial hire. Odd, isn't it? A janitor logging in with the same clearance once held by the building's original owner. Employees turned. The receptionist's face paled. The colleague stepped closer. "Tell them, old friend. Tell them who you really are." Silence crushed the air. The janitor's throat tightened. He had planned to tell her privately, gently, when the moment felt right. Not like this, stripped bare in front of strangers. He finally lifted his head. "I didn't come back to deceive anyone," he said softly. "I came to see how things really were. I needed to understand what I had allowed this place to become." The receptionist stared at him, as if seeing a stranger where someone familiar had stood. "You lied," she whispered. "Every day, you let me trust you." "Back up, it wasn't meant to hurt you," he begged. But she stepped back, shaking her head, betrayal clouding her eyes. In that moment, her distance felt sharper than any accusation in the room. He left the building before anyone else could corner him, walking until the city blocks blurred into a smear of noise and cold air. When he finally stopped, it was behind the maintenance shed near the far edge of the property. An old spot he had once approved on a blueprint, but never imagined he'd hide behind. He pressed his hands against his face, breath shaking. The truth was out, and the one person he never meant to hurt looked at him like he'd ripped something precious from her. He sank onto the concrete step, staring at the ground as guilt pressed hard against his ribs. Everything he had tried to protect her from had only come back sharper. He had wanted to understand life from the bottom, to see what his decisions had done. Instead, he had destroyed the one connection that felt real. A soft shuffle of footsteps broke through the haze. It was the night security guard, a quiet older man who rarely spoke unless spoken to. He held a thermos in one hand and set it down gently beside him. "You look like someone carrying too much," the guard said, settling onto the step without asking permission. "Mind if an old man sits with you?" He shook his head, unable to form words. The guard nodded toward the building. "People get angry when they feel tricked. Doesn't mean they hate you. Just means they're hurt." He paused, letting the words land. "Question is, are you going to run from that, or face it?" "I never meant to lie," he whispered. "I know, but intentions don't fix feelings. You want to make it right. Start by being honest, fully, this time, and let her be honest too." The guard stood, gave his shoulder a firm, steady squeeze, and left him with one final thought. If you care for someone, you don't give up when it gets hard. He sat alone with that truth, realizing it was the first step he had to take. H5. He found her after her shift, standing outside the building with her coat pulled tight and her eyes fixed on the pavement. She didn't look up when he approached, but he stopped a few feet away, giving her room. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. She let out a shaky breath. "Talk? After all that? I don't even know who you are." "You know more than you think," he said. "Everything I told you, the things I liked, the things I feared, that was all real. The only thing I hid was my name." She finally looked at him, hurt, filling every corner of her expression. "You let me sit beside you, laugh with you, trust you, and you were living a double life. I wasn't living it, he said. I was trying to understand the damage I caused. I came back because I needed to see what my choices had done to the people here. And what about me? She asked, voice breaking. Was I just part of the study? A detail in your research? He shook his head fast. You were never a detail. You were the first person who looked at me like I mattered, without knowing anything about my past. I don't know if I can forgive you, she whispered. I'm not asking for forgiveness today, he answered. I'm asking for a chance to prove I meant every moment with you. The silence between them felt fragile, but it wasn't broken. It was waiting. The days that followed were quiet, but not empty. She didn't rush back to him, and he didn't try to force closeness. Instead, he focused on actions, real, steady, visible changes that proved he was done hiding. He met with department heads, speaking not as an owner returning to reclaim power, but as someone determined to fix the harm caused over the years. He made sure every staff member, including her, received fair hours, humane workloads, and respect that had long been missing. Rumors spread, but he didn't address them. He let the work speak. She watched from a distance. She saw the way he listened to complaints without interrupting, how he stood up for employees whose names others couldn't remember. She noticed how he never avoided her, even when she avoided him. He greeted her gently every morning, offering nothing more than a sincere, "Good to see you," letting her decide if she wanted to say anything back. One afternoon, she found the desk chair he had once fixed wearing a small tag. "If it wobbles again, I'm here." No signature, just a quiet reminder that he still cared. Her guard didn't fall all at once. It softened in pieces, first with a nod when she passed him in the hall, then with a short conversation about a delivery mishap. Then one morning, she brought 2 coffees to the lobby and hesitated before placing one on his cart. "I figured you might need this," she said. He looked up, surprised but grateful. "Thank you." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. Later that week, she found him repairing a loose handrail on the stairwell. She paused beside him. "You're different now," she said softly. He tightened the final bolt. "I'm trying to be someone worth trusting." She studied him carefully, then gave a small nod. "Keep trying." For the first time since everything fell apart, hope slipped quietly back into the space between them. Spring arrived slowly, bringing softer mornings and longer light through the lobby windows. By then, the building felt different, calmer, fairer, almost renewed. Policies had shifted, workloads balanced, and the employees who once walked with their heads down now greeted each other with more ease. And she noticed it all, knowing he had quietly reshaped the place without boasting or demanding praise. One evening, as the last rays of sun filtered across the marble floor, she found him in the lobby, adjusting the height of a new welcome sign. It wasn't flashy, just warm and inviting, something that reflected the building's new tone. "Need help?" she asked, stepping beside him. He turned, a hint of surprise, then a smile. "Always." She held the sign steady while he tightened the final screw. When they finished, she didn't step back right away. Instead, she looked up at him with a softness that hadn't been there for a long time. "I've seen what you've done," she said quietly. "Not just for the building, for everyone here." "I owed them," he replied. "I owed you even more." She exhaled slowly, the tension of months easing from her shoulders. "You hurt me," she said, "but you also changed, and that matters." "I want to build something honest," he said, "starting with you, if you'll let me." Her hesitation lasted only a breath. Then she reached for his hand, fingers brushing his, like they had the night everything almost shifted. This time, she didn't pull away. "You don't have to pretend anymore," she whispered. "Just be the man I've watched you become." Their hands intertwined fully, warm and certain. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, in the soft glow of the lobby, they had both worked to rebuild in different ways. They finally allowed themselves the quiet, earned beginning of something real. So if you want more stories filled with heart, growth, and second chances, make sure to subscribe and stay connected with us on Echoes of Hope. Your support helps these stories come alive. Until the next journey, thank you for being here.